how to design for student engagement in your online learning courses. Check it out. Welcome to our fourth of 5 mini-series here on student engagement and digital learning design. Today we're going to talk about timely feedback. So what do we mean by that? Well, the mindset is now you've had it in your first assignment as a student. What are you going to hear something back, right? So what's the timely feedback? So you need to, one, really know your own system, how quickly you can get things in, how quickly what your sort of workload is, but then also how quickly you can get it out, how quickly can the system notify, if it can, students of what's going on, okay? So that's the first major thing. The second thing then is you can set up the parameters of how you want to do this in terms of when you're going to be able to get things back to them. Now, we don't want to deal in concretes here. We want to give a range of times, and each might be a little bit different given the situation. For example, for discussion board items, okay, now are you going to reply to every person? Are you going to reply to, if there's because the idea of a discussion board, it shouldn't be just like a one-time thing. You want the connection between students to be happening or ongoing. So are you going to monitor every day? Do you have a TA who can do that? If you have to do it, how often do you have to monitor it? And then how often do you have to give some sort of feedback? Grading. So this should be a little easier. You know how long theoretically you're the one creating the assignment. So how long it's going to take for the student to do, how long it's going to take for you to grade and then get it back. Does the system push or do they have to come and check? Any course issues. So in other words, how are students going to notify you if there's some sort of course issue, if there's some sort of external circumstance they need to get a hold of you, and how quickly can you get back to them? So the second part of timely feedback we want to look at is monitoring progress. In other words, how are you able to track how the student is doing and is keeping engaged? First thing is make sure you follow your parameters, the ones that we just talked about in the last little section. Second piece is let's look for early warning signs. Now, if you haven't seen the discussion board ones, either now or after this, go down and take a quick look. The link is below. Because it talks about ways that you can use the discussion boards to check on some issues in that first week. But now obviously we're talking about for, say, the first assignment or the first task, so that you're able to really keep on track, on top of things, right? So if it's late, what happens? If they're not following the rubric or the guidelines that you've laid out, then what happens? Okay, the idea here is how do we make sure, or how do we track, which is another really cool article downstairs, any wallflowers on our online course. Our last little piece here about timely feedback is also about how are you contactable? Now, we're not talking about 24/7. However, there are some very specific things you can do with an online course that can mimic what is happening in the real world. First is, are there two options? Every portal has some sort of a how to contact within, but is there an official email or something outside of the portal with which people can get in contact with you if there is a real problem? Another one is, have you ever thought about digital office hours? I know that might sound a little bizarre, but think about it. Is there certain times in a week that you are dedicating your feedback to this course that if somebody really needed to get a hold of you or hear back from you, they know it's going to happen during those times. So you might want to give some digital office hours on how students can know when, if there's an emergency, they can potentially get a hold of you. Okay, so always remember to please feed their curiosity.